out from Lake Victoria, indeed powering communities. Well, like I told you, we want to dive into that conversation on matters to do with the environment. And I'll be joined by the chairman of PETCO, John Waithaka, who is with us in studio. Many thanks for making time for us. And just before we get into the conversation, today we did see a lot happening in the political space where President Uhuru Kenyatta asked for forgiveness and he reaffirmed his commitment to fighting corruption in the country. I just want to pick your quick thoughts on this.
Again, this is quite a good opportunity for the country. I've read about this in the media. And for us as a country, coming together and putting God first and saying that we want to move ahead together, I think is a good opportunity for the country. We have seen what has happened in the past when we were not working together, that the business environment was not conducive. Now we have got a much better business environment. We have got a very better social issues out there. So I think all of us putting together and forging our way forward, I think is quite a good opportunity for the country and opens a lot of other opportunities for us.
All right. Yeah. Very, very pace-setting. Thank you so much, Bwana Waithaka. And of course, PETCO is a Kenya private sector initiative aimed at coordinating collection and recycling of PET packaging. And just talk to us about, we know next week we'll be having a big event, of course, that will be the World Environment Day. And talk to us about really the journey that PETCO has had.
PETCO has been with us for a couple of months. And by the way, PETCO, the full name is a Kenya PET Recycling Company, but we are trading as a PETCO Kenya. We formed this company back towards the end of last year. From the time that we formed this company, we have had some 2 board meetings. So setting up a board is one of the things that we did. And that board has got representatives from different sectors of the industry. And then we have had engagements, a lot of engagements to do with the stakeholders, also to do with the ministry, to do with the bottlers that we have got, to do with the converters, a lot of engagements that we have had out there. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And of course, Kenya did ban issues to do with plastics. And from where you sit, there's been the agenda to push recycling in the region, especially now that you're seeing a lot of consumer products coming into the market. And talk to us about really the materials that you use and what is your overall outlook for the Kenyan market?
There are different types of plastics. The plastics that were banned in August last year is what we call polythene. These are the flat polythene bags that we have got out there. But the ones that we use is known as PET. PET is a polyethylene terephthalate. This one has not been banned. That's the one that a lot of us in the market use, especially in the beverage industry. And within this PET products, there's a lot of it. Kenya consumes quite a substantial quantity of PET. Our estimate is over 20,000 metric tons of PET is being used in the country. Mm-hmm. The concerns that have been there in the market is that in terms of the disposal, PET is a very versatile packaging material. However, the disposal has been of concern. We have seen PET littering the environment. We have seen PET littering the roads. We have seen PET maybe going into the oceans. That has been the concern. It has been more in terms of the attitude that we have gotten, more in terms of the habit that people have in terms of the way they handle PET. So what we have been discussing is creating more awareness to ensure that we manage waste, and specifically waste to do with PET, by ensuring that PET is not just disposed out there. PET is corrected, and over and above that, this PET is recycled. So that we have got end products that are coming from this PET, and we are creating a cyclic economy out of this PET. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you raise a very important point, Mr. Waithaka, that this particular product is fully recyclable.
Yeah.
And from a manufacturer's point of view, what are some of the expectations in terms of cost cutting? And of course, how do they save at the end of the day?
the manufacturers, what we want to do is, instead of every time using virgin resins to make our PET bottles and the like, we want to make sure that we are able to recycle the bottles that we have got. What this means is that we reduce on the amount of virgin resins that we use. By using recycled PET, it means that then we reduce in terms of the costs of the PET, in terms of the whole production process. The other mechanisms also in terms of reducing the grammage of the PET bottles that we have got, those are also initiatives that a lot of our manufacturers are doing out there. What as Petco we are doing is to ensure that we create a mechanism of ensuring that we improve on the amount of correction and recycling of PET that we have got. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, this comes as you also look forward to the World Environment Day, where we expect you to officially launch PET. Talk to us about what we should expect as a country.
During the World Environment Day, which is celebrated on the 5th of June, as a country, there's an event which has been planned for the coast, specifically on the 5th of June, but there are build-up activities coming up to that event on the 5th. Starting from this week, there are a lot of activities being done by the ministry and other stakeholders. But for us as Petco, what we are doing, we shall be participating in the event on the 5th of June, which happens in Kwale Town at the coast. And what we'll be doing is that we should be launching Petco. And launching Petco in this particular case means creating awareness in terms of what is Petco doing, how is Petco going to work with other stakeholders in ensuring that we eliminate or we reduce the amount of PET waste there, that we are able to recycle the PET that we have got. So there will be a lot of awareness creation that we are going to do when we go to the coast next week.
All right. Yes. And Idhaka, you mentioned that about 20,000 metric tons is out there. Yeah. And how do you plan to use PET in these value chains? And how will it sort of affect the people who are eking a livelihood out of it?
Good question. What we are going to do is that like I said, 20,000 metric tons is an estimate of what we have got. We have done surveys to see exactly what is happening out there in the market. In terms of where Petco is going to come in, Petco is a voluntary mechanism from the industry to ensure that we promote PET recycling. And so what we are going to do is that we'll be able to correct some levy based on the usage that the manufacturers have got, and it's voluntary. We are not mandating it to anybody. And based on the levy that we collect, specifically in this particular case, we have come up with a figure of about 2,500 per metric ton, which means it's about 2 shillings and 50 cents per kilogram of PET that one has used. Yes. Essentially, this is about 5 Kenya cents per bottle, if you're talking about a 500 ml bottle. So that's more or less negligible. And the industry is saying they are going to absorb that cost. Yeah. Of course, it may be a huge amount when they look at the total amount that they use. And then the funds that we get, those funds are going to be used for purposes of ensuring that now we subsidize the people who are involved in recycling, the recyclers that we already have got. So Petco itself is not going to establish industries and the like. Petco is going to come in there and ensure an interface between the recyclers and the bottlers and retailers, that we are able to have a mechanism where we can correct more, and that at the end of the day, those correctors that are out there in the field can see the value in PET that we have got. That PET has got value because at the moment, correctors may not be correcting PET. They give a priority, for instance, to scrap metal and other materials like other types of plastics, and not PET, because PET doesn't have a good value as such. So Petco is coming in to ensure that we create a good monetary value on PET.
All right. Yes. And of course, Idhaka, plastic waste is a big menace, really, not only for Kenya, even the region at large. Yeah. Perhaps talk to us about other countries that have gone through this PET, and what has been the overall impact in the sector as we wrap up?
We are borrowing from what has happened in other markets, and we have done a scan around and trying to map out what other people are doing. And we have seen a very good example in South Africa. There's also a very good example in Mauritius. So we want to borrow from examples that are closer to us. Those two are African countries. And specifically in our case, we want to kind of replicate what they are doing in South Africa, of course, customized to the Kenyan situation. And those markets have made a lot of progress in terms of what they have done. Again, in South Africa, they created a company on a voluntary basis 14 years ago. At that period of time when they created that company, they were recycling only about 15%. Today, 14 years down the road, they are recycling 65%. And this is more or less a best-in-class that we have got. In Kenya, we are recycling very little at the moment. We are only recycling about 5% locally. Yes, there's a lot of collection happening, but the recycling is very little. So what we want to do is that by the end of this year, we want to ensure that we are able to recycle 25%. And by 2030, we plan to be able to recycle to the tune of 70%.
That's a very high target.
Yeah.
I hope you'll achieve it.
It's all aimed for us ensuring that we, as an environmental responsibility, that this is going to be done. Our board has worked on this. We have put mechanisms in place to make sure that it happens.
All right.
And working jointly with our stakeholders, we believe it's going to happen. Yeah.
And of course, Waithaka, you look very athletic, and Kenyans are also an athletic nation, really. We've seen a number of marathons happening.
Yeah.
And I took part in Stanchart Marathon last year. And as people were doing the race, they would throw the plastic bottles. I did see the same on social media on Mata Heart Run, people throwing plastic bottles.
Okay.
So how do we deliver the message of awareness to the society so that we can be able to, when people are jogging, you're tired, you just want to have your sip, and you're done with the water bottle. How do we manage this waste as you give us your closing thoughts? Good
question on this one. I think what we are working on this, like I said, over and above ensuring that we motivate the collectors to be able to collect more PET bottles. There's also the part of the awareness creation, the part of the education, because it's a culture shift in terms of what we need to do to ensure that we don't litter the world. We don't litter our homes and throw the bottles everywhere that they come from. So we want our people to be aware that when you consume the product you've got, may you be in the driving or may you be walking, you need to take your bottle with you. A PET bottle is very light compared to glass or any other packaging materials. So carry that bottle with you until you get to a point where you can dispose it. Of course, when we have got things like maybe the marathon or the heart runs and the like, we need to be able to also ensure that within that route that we have got the marathon or the heart run, at least there are disposal bins that are created, and whoever the sponsors are going to ensure that they also have got a mechanism of coming to correct that waste. It's not really waste, as we have put it, because we shall have created a value for it. There will be people who will be looking for this material that eventually that it has been corrected, it's going to be taken back for recycling. All right. Yes.
And how much will this industry look like, let's say, in the next 5 years? It looks very lucrative.
The thing is, it's not we are not doing this because of the profits or anything that we are going to get. By the way, Petco is a non-profit company. We don't expect to make any profits.
All right.
We only put our model in such a way that we are only going to get enough funds to be able to ensure that we collect the bottles and recycle them. And whatever surplus funds we are going to be getting, these surplus funds are going to be put back in terms of environmental activities. May they be environmental activities to do with education, environmental activities to do with cleanups. That's what we are going to use it for. If we have any other funds, then there are also people who are doing a collection and maybe they don't have a mechanism of disposal of those bottles. Some of them are exporting. We'll also ensure that we facilitate those people. For instance, give them bearing equipment so that they can be able to compact that waste and be able to export it to other markets if that waste cannot be handled in the country. But we are in this for purposes of conservation of the environment, and we are in it on a voluntary basis to ensure that our environment is kept clean and that we create value for PET.
Well done, sir. Thank you, and
thank you.
All the best
in
this initiative.
Thank you.
I hope to come on board.
We look to welcome you, and if you can participate in the World Environment Day, the better. And we also have got a lot of activities. Certainly, we would want to see you with us.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, interesting insights there from John Waithaka, the chairman of Petco, talking to us really on matters to do with conservation. And he's quite optimistic that they have set their targets right and they look forward to achieving them. Well, we want to take a quick commercial break. On the other side of the break, I'll be speaking to Ken Gishinga, taking stock of some of the top stories we've seen throughout the week. And of course, that is the NYS and the NCPB scandals. How is this eroding economic confidence in the country? You don't want to miss that conversation after the break. Thank you.